Brothers and sisters, we are blessed with countless favors and blessings. Our existence is fully dependent from the moment that we were allowed and blessed with existence before we were put in our mother's womb. And from every single breath that we've taken, every morsel of food we've eaten, every sip of water we've drank, everything we have, our entire life, is a blessing from the beneficent, benevolent creator, provider, and sustainer of the heavens and the earth. One who recognizes this seeks a life of gratitude. It's natural. But how can I be grateful? How would I know what makes me truly grateful for this? And that is why prophethood and revelation was established throughout human history. That there were people chosen for a specific reason throughout different times and places all over the earth to communicate the message so that we may know what morality is. Where do we draw the line? What is right? What is wrong? What is good? What is evil? What is truth? What is falsehood? We have an objective source of judgment. And so it's our responsibility to assure that we have taken that path of seeking that truth so that we can truly be grateful. As time passes, opportunities come upon us. In the end of Surah Al-Furqan, in verse number 62, وَهُوَ الَّذِي جَعَلَ اللَّيْلَ وَالنَّهَارَ خِلْفَةً لِمَنْ أَرَادَ أَنْ يَذَّكَّرَ أَوْ أَرَادَ شُكُورًا. And He is the one who made the passing of the night and day as an opportunity for anyone who would reflect and pay attention, and for anyone who would like to be thankful. Tomorrow night we begin a new year. Tomorrow night we begin year 1446 after the migration of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Migration carries huge significance in the life of a believer. The general meaning throughout history and languages of migration is to move from one place to another seeking better circumstances. In Islamic theology, according to scripture, it is about human progress. It's the process by which we prove ourselves as believers in overcoming the difficult circumstances that we find ourselves in, whether that be situations, a place to live, or circumstances that we're facing. Adam and Eve, from the very beginning, it was shown from the beginning of humanity that we must migrate to prove ourselves. If it was you or I, or any one of these sisters, we would have all ate from that tree. We would have eaten from that tree because of our curiosity, for our lack of perfection and purity in obedience. So now we are required to migrate away from paradise to prove that we are worthy of it, to live a time in a place where we prove ourselves devoted and surrendering to the blessing that gave us life in the first place. And so this is our story as people. فَإِمَّا يَأْتِيَنَّكُم مِّنِّي هُدًى فَمَن تَبِعَ هُدَايَ فَلَا خَوْفٌ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا هُمْ يَحْزَنُونَ. Any among you of humanity, wherever you live, if you find a prophetic teaching and you affirm it, then whoever follows that prophetic teaching has nothing to fear on the day of judgment, and they would have nothing to be sad about from whatever they left from this world. Our beloved Prophet Abraham, peace and blessings be upon him. We just came through those sacred 10 days in which we're elevating and honoring his story. He was the migrant in human history. As just a young teenager in modern-day Iraq, he was willing to challenge his father and all of the elders in the political system of his country to prove to them the truth. And when he was miraculously saved from their plot to have him burned to death, he was banished. And he said, Inni muhajirun ila Rabbi. Truly I am a migrant to my Lord. Meaning what? It doesn't matter where I will be because he doesn't know exactly where he will go. But what he does know is that wherever I may be, I will represent and establish the truth of revelation, the divine authority that I was sent to communicate. The Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, his decision to strategize after 5 years of persecution to send the believers to a completely different place, a different ethnic group, a different religion, he sent the believers to Ethiopia in East Africa. And he told them, you will find a place where you can thrive under a Christian king there. Many people would say, well, this is just simply because they were facing danger and persecution, so this is just a place for them to go to be safe. It's much more than that, actually, because many of the people who were sent were actually from tribes like the Prophet ﷺ's own cousin, Ja'far ibn Abi Talib, Uthman ibn Affan, who come from a respected tribe. Even that they're Muslim, the tribal system protected them, but they still went because it wasn't simply about that. It was about ensuring that Islam will be established in this place. And before they left there, the king himself and many others had converted to Islam and followed these small group of 50, 60 people who came from Arabia. And so then the Prophet ﷺ, when he migrated to Medina, many of those people were told to stay and did not come to Medina until the 7th or 8th year after Hijrah, which meant that migration was intended for much more than just simply safety. So the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, after facing 11 years of torture, abuse, humiliation, dishonor, boycotts, financial struggles, he strategized with his companions for 2 years, planning a way out after the blessing came that some people from the city of Yathrib were willing to embrace them and to bring them into Medina. So the Prophet ﷺ again was not just like, oh, let's escape. Oh, no. No. He did everything in his capacity to strategize and plan the most effective methodology to succeed in building and growing this message for future generations. And it is because of that migration to Medina, and without it, nobody would be sitting in this room right now. It is that consequential, which is why when Umar ibn Khattab became the ruler of a land much bigger and much more honorable and noble than the United States of America, when they were confused about what year, because the Arabs did not have like a numbered years. They're like, okay, this is Muharram, okay, but which Muharram? How long did it take for that message to come to you? And so then they said, let's make the migration the point of reference in our history, because without it, we're nothing. So migration is a huge fundamental teaching of Islam. Our whole entire life, from being a toddler, we're living as a toddler, we don't know anything, we can't do anything on our own. We need so much help and support from mom and dad. So then we move to childhood and we migrate to a position of understanding cause and effect and consequences. We start to realize that. So now we're in a new life position with new consequences, new implications. Then we migrate into our teenage years trying to work out adulthood. Then we become adults. Now we're responsible. We want to establish a family. And then many of us will find ourselves getting much older and not able to care for ourselves and not able to think and act as we used to. So we migrate into old age. And then the ultimate migration, which is coming closer and closer every moment of every day, we will all die. So this is the life is about migration. The Quran tells us of this great status that's meant for everyone in all times. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَهَاجَرُوا وَجَاهَدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَالَّذِينَ آوَوا وَنَصَرُوا أُولَئِكَ هُمُ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ حَقًّا لَهُمْ مَغْفِرَةٌ وَرِزْقٌ كَرِيمٌ. He says, the true believers are those who committed to their faith. And they migrate and fight in the path of God, protecting and defending those who are persecuted, those who are in danger. They will have their Lord's forgiveness, and they will have an abundance of good blessings in the eternity of paradise. When we look in Surah At-Tawbah, الذين آمنوا وهاجروا وجاهدوا في سبيل الله بأموالهم وأنفسهم أعظم درجة عند الله وأولئك هم الفائزون. He tells us the highest rank, the highest standing with God is those who are committed to their faith, who migrated. Then they put their wealth and their own lives on the line in the path of God. Such people are truly successful. You see, we've been brainwashed in a world that is void of prophetic empowerment, of a world of materialism. So most all of us are in this industrial system where we become indoctrinated to believe that our value, our worth, our success is about how much material wealth and how we pay our bills and what stuff we buy and what dollars and cents we represent in an economy. We have to migrate away from that thought process. We have to migrate away from that value system which is in our face from middle school. It is a process of migration by which we will reach salvation. Migration only fulfills its purpose with a knowledge of circumstances and a response according to revelation. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم فاستغفروه فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. If everybody could please scoot up and make room. Some of the ladies can people scoot over. Some of the ladies trying to find a place. Migration fulfills its greatest purpose as a response to oppression. When you're being oppressed as a believer, it is completely unbecoming. It is contradictory to being a believer, to be with the attitude and mindset and words and behaviors that says, oh, we're done, we're weak, we have no power, we can't do anything to change this, we just have to stay to ourselves, we just have to keep our money and our status and all of that. That's what's important. This is absolutely not the story. In Surah An-Nahl, chapter 16, verse 41, Allah says, وَالَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا فِي اللَّهِ مِن بَعْدِ مَا ظُلِمُوا لَنُبَوِّئَنَّهُمْ فِي الدُّنْيَا حَسَنَةً وَلَأَجْرُ الْآخِرَةِ أَكْبَرُ لَوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ. We have a different model, and it's proven historically than others. He says, those believers who migrated for God's sake after being oppressed and persecuted, they're guaranteed worldly comfort and worldly blessings. And what is waiting for them in the hereafter is much more than that, if only they knew. And the end of the same chapter, ثُمَّ إِنَّ رَبَّكَ لِلَّذِينَ هَاجَرُوا مِن بَعْدِ مَا فُتِنُوا ثُمَّ جَاهَدُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ وَصَبَرُوا إِنَّ رَبَّكَ مِن بَعْدِهَا لَغَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. He says, those who migrated for God's sake, after having been oppressed and persecuted, they will receive the forgiveness and they will have the mercy of their Lord because they persevered, that they struggled and strived in the face of this persecution, that they embraced the hardship that this migration entails. They knew it wasn't going to be handed to them on a silver platter. And they lived accordingly. And they were comfortable with worldly loss for eternal gain. Those people in our history, starting with the Prophet ﷺ and his companions, and many times throughout our history as believers, when believers worked together as migrants, as mujahideen, we were given dignity and strength and worldly respect and worldly wealth. It came to us. It's a natural part. When we left that, which has been the state for some 200-300 years, we've seen what we've seen. And so it's our responsibility to reflect and review what is our situation. See, you have to pay attention. Which one group for the entire world, the power structures for the most part, were in agreement that we need to demonize and vilify that group? since the year 2001, the world, by political structures, by media, by entertainment, by so many different ways, they were trying to convince everybody that Muslims are bad, that Muslims are a threat. Even the atheists are like, yeah, we're good with our Christians, knowing good and well the Christian history is a bloodbath of taking land and resources, enslaving and massacring people with genocide. But the system they agreed upon is Muslims are the boogeyman. Why would they do that? Let's just put it this way. Think logically. If Islam really was so bad, then people will open up the Quran and be like, oh my God, why would I follow that? That's crazy, right? If Islam was so bad, when most people met Muslims, they'd be like, I want to stay away from those people, right? But what we find actually throughout our history, starting with the Indonesia, when some traders are traveling from Persia and Arabian Gulf and India to just set business up in these mini islands called Indonesia. Within 500 years, the vast majority of the people had all converted to Islam. There were no wars, no political power, no nothing there. It was just Muslims being Muslim. The groups of pagan and Christian and Buddhist sects were like, this is superior. What they represent is better. When the Mongols wiped out a third of the Islamic State, piling bodies up like towers, putting the fear of everyone, destroying Muslim armies, left and right. Within 100 years of them ruling over almost a half of the entire land that they had conquered, they all converted to Islam as the rulers. Reader's Digest in the year 1987, 90, or 1996, 97, Reader's Digest used to be a very common sociological, literary book you would find in the, when you're leaving. It's a decent representation of what's going on in the world. They said in the 1990s at the end that 25,000 plus people are converting to Islam in America every year. 25,000 every year. And they said that according to the numbers in America of birth rates and conversion rates, and balancing that with people who lose their faith, that Islam will become a very dominant political influence in the democratic society by 2050 in America. But of course, that's before 9/11, so nobody felt threatened by that. This new religion, Eastern religion, is growing. I became Muslim in 1998. For all of you younger folks here, okay, I'm going to go boomer on you for a moment, okay? Nobody was worried. Like when I became Muslim in 1998, oh, it's like Buddhism. Oh, it's different. It's monotheism. So that's Eastern religion. Oh, okay. But at that time, there was 1 billion Muslims in the world, 50 countries, all Muslim. The West, I mean, if we were really always some violent group, for sure, everybody would know about it by now. We've been around for 1,000 some odd years. But kids, that wasn't the agenda yet. You see? These are facts. So, but why? I'll tell you why. I've been telling you why over and over. It's because you are the holders of that which will undo this filthy, foul, corrupt, international, money-worshipping ring of political power people. You have a system that threatens the fundamentals of their power structure. That's why they were very careful post-World War I to make sure who would be rulers and what would be the defined borders of these lands. When British was going to leave India, they said, that can't be just a big Muslim continent. We need to split it up. Not because Muslims are going to become a terrorist, because they know the great history of Islam. When Islam was a great following of people following Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, called a khilafah, a caliphate. When the Muslim ruler was oppressing or doing wrong to the Christian or the Hindu, that Muslim ruler would be punished publicly and removed from their place upon the evidence being brought, even if it was the brother of the governor. The notion of economics is not about creating monopolizing. Actually, Islam is completely against monopolizing. All of modern economy is about monopolizing. The Prophet Muhammad clearly forbade that. Interest and building money off of having money and creating a money class. Islam eradicated that. Islam is blind justice. If that person is poor and weak and they do a crime, okay, they are equal to anyone else. If that person is rich and powerful, they will be treated like anyone else. To the extent that the Caliph, Ali ibn Abi Talib, when he saw his shield, that he knows his shield, with a Jewish man, and he brought Shuraih al-Qadi, the Muslim judge, and we had separation of powers long before in America existed. He brought the judge, that's my shield, I've been looking for that for years. He has my shield. So then Shuraih, he doesn't say, well, you're the president, you're the caliph. He says, what is your evidence, is what he says. You see? And then he tells this Jewish man says, my whole family knows this has been mine, it's mine. And so with the evidence brought forth, that man won, and Ali ibn Talib had to go about his business, even though that is a very sacred thing to him. That Jewish man came back and converted to Islam, saying, I can't believe that this just happened like this. This has to be prophethood. I don't know why we've been told to reject this, but the only way someone would come out like that is that a prophet of God. We know as Jews, that's the only transformative reality. They know this. They know this, trust me. But they're betting that whatever they've done, post 9/11 fear-mongering, self-hating, self-loathing, believing all these stories that they created with their policies of economic suppression and abuse, they're expecting you will do nothing, that you will not have a seriousness about your faith. And so it's time for us to migrate. Prophet ﷺ was asked about migration, and he said, Al-muhajir man hajara ma naha Allahu an. The migrant is the one that migrates away from those things God has forbidden. He said in another narration, Al-muhajir man hajara su. The migrant is the one that stays away from evil and corruption. They don't affiliate with it. They don't toy with it. The scholars have highlighted three main qualities of what it means to be a true migrant. They said first and foremost is taking a serious inventory of one's knowledge of Islam. The scriptures, the Quran, the hadith. What do I know from the references? And then working daily, little by little, to improve. Is my knowledge of Islam pretty much all culture? Meaning, I'm assuming it's Islam, but I just grew up hearing people say and do stuff and I go along with it. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you any ayah or hadith that would tell you why. The beginning of the migration is to actualize your knowledge from the divine reference. The second thing they said is to train ourselves to avoid evil influences, whether it be people, environments, or circumstances. When you know something is evil, when you know something's corrupt, when you know something has sinful ways in it, you don't entertain yourself with that situation, those people. You don't surround yourself with those people. You don't put yourself in that position. You migrate away from it. And last but not least, we refine our character, that we collectively work to advise and improve upon each other. This judgment-free zone of what they're cultivating, everybody's a bunch of individuals battling it out and then turning into tribes of little groups that have very little moral foundations, just the fact of divide and conquer. It's been that way since the beginning of time. If you don't really have a moral conviction to stand on, you divide and you can make these people fight, and then you are the leader. You are the ruler. You are the system. So it's crucial for us to look into this and see where we stand. What are we doing? Am I here for a purpose? Did I come here to this country to represent Islam to the world? How effectively have I migrated to revelation, to the Quran? How effective am I in communicating Islam? Again, if your understanding of what I just said was debating theological points, your religion's wrong, my beliefs are right, that is a very childish, immature way of seeing it. It has its place and its time, but for the most part, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the big picture of your convictions, which lead to morals and values lived by word and action, that people are impressed and they want to know why. But because they know that you're Muslim, because you are not shy or ashamed in the least bit for it to be known that you're a Muslim, they will then relate what you do to Islam, what you stand for to Islam. And when they see that what you stand for is objectively, substantively preventing evil and promoting what's in everybody's best interest, then they will want to appreciate that. They will want to uplift that. If they choose not to embrace it, that's between them and God. That's what we want to get to. Right now, people are saying, okay, you know, call your congressman, call your this. That's important, but it has its role whenever it matters. They could care less that we call them. Until we establish ourselves as a viable, dignified, respected body of people because of what we represent, because of our values, we will never have any influence. And so it's our responsibility to live this message. Our notion here as people at a mosque, what is the purpose of being here at this mosque? Again, you have to think, why do I think the way I think? Do you think you decided the way things are, or you're a product of your environment? Everyone's a product of their environment unless they choose to change their environment. And only the leaders, only the migrants change their environment. Are you with me? Because when you see the mosque as a place to pray and to hear a khutbah and to ask a fatwa and then leave, that is a system that is very different from the Prophet Muhammad's institution of the mosque. The mosque was a place packed to the brim on a daily basis for many reasons by women, by men, and by younger people. And they came there not just to read Quran and Hadith, but they came there for economic concerns and interests. They came there for concerns about civil or criminal law. They came there about political concerns of dangers. They came there about concerns of medical nature. They came there looking for things to know and learn, for opportunities. It was the home away from home. It was the government center. All governing realities happened from the mosque. Not just in the Prophet's time, but for centuries after that. So this model that people are used to is part of those international people who are rooted here in this country, okay? They decided that we want to keep them very simplistic, watered down. And those rulers who they've put in that place, and the only reason why they're going to stay in that place is because they are serving the interests of keeping people where they're at. They do not want a mosque to become a place of growth and movement and moral truth, because that will threaten their corrupt leadership, because it's clearly not Islam. That's why it's the way it is. Now here in this country they're saying, no. Freedom. You have the keys. But they're betting your hard work to make all that money and to pay off all that debt and all that entertainment that you're going to waste your life away in will never amount to an Islamic anything here. That's what they're betting. Are you going to challenge that bet? That's the question. So what we want to do here is with this mosque is make this an organized place of believers who are mobilized with a strategy and goals in mind about how we are growing as individuals and as a collective towards building a structure and framework for influencing this society. Because others have already done that. This genocide you're watching, both in Palestine and Sudan and elsewhere, is happening because the power structures have decided it's in their best interests. Because you see, the issue of Russia and Ukraine is pretty much identical to the issue of Israel and Palestine. But the power structures have decided that that one should be seen this way morally, and that one should be seen the opposite way, even though it's the same thing, because our political, economic interests are in favor of that one and against that one. That is completely against Islam. That judgment process would never be accepted. People would have fought the ruler, and they did, when they saw that. Very shortly after, when Yazid ibn Muawiyah came in, Abdullah ibn Zubayr started gathering people and said, we have to work this out after Hussein was killed. And they were willing to. And in some times in our history, it was overcome, and other times it was not. But nobody just sat by and watched the ultimate corruption and tyranny stand. They were doing something in their locality, within their frame of reference, to migrate and to bring people towards their Lord. Ya Allah, we ask your forgiveness, we ask your guidance, we ask you to give us the means of success, we ask you to make us migrants, people who are seeking your pleasure. Ya Allah, we ask you to heal our hearts and our minds of the corruption of ignorance and arrogance and foolishness. We ask you to empower us with knowledge and wisdom, knowledge from scripture and revelation, knowledge of the world around us, and understanding that sees things as they are, that you would show us the truth and put us on the journey to establish it, that you would show us the falsehood for what it is and keep us away from it and avert it from us. Ya Allah, we ask you to return us to a way that is pleasing to you, that as a collective of believers, our hearts and minds come together, that we may make this world a better place, that we may repair what's been broken in this world. Ya Allah, we ask your forgiveness, we ask your guidance, we ask your concern for our needs, that you will be our guardian supporter, and that you see us through, that our last words can declare your oneness and the finality of your prophethood, and that we may be worthy of the eternal bliss, where there will be no pain and suffering, no sadness, no conflict, no sickness, no anger, no conflict. Ya Allah, make us worthy of the paradise of peace and perfection, and may all of us hear that greeting of peace from the angels as we walk into the gates of heaven behind our beloved Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Wa aqim as-salat.